Hello, I'm David Uy, Executive Director of the Chinese American Museum, DC, the first and only museum in our nation's capital dedicated to the Chinese American story. This evening, we are delighted to present a short documentary, a discussion, and memories from 75 years of Miss Chinatown USA pageant. The nature of the pageant has probably changed and evolved over time, but its focus on celebrating Chinese American culture and values has remained. Joining us tonight are 4 winners from the pageant and our moderator, Felicia Lowe, winner of Miss Congeniality 1968.
65.
By the way, 65. Oh, by the way, earlier I heard from Penny Wong, who's Miss Chinatown 1968. That's why I had 68 in the brain. Who says she's watching the program tonight. So, well, Felicia Lowe is an award-winning independent media producer, director, and writer. Her documentaries include Chinese Couplets, Carved in Silence, Chinatown and China, Land of My Father, and she recently produced the animated video, A Journey Through Angel Island. In September 2022, Lau was recognized by the Chinese American Museum of Los Angeles as a history maker, and she was presented the Societal Transformation Award for her body of work. She is a past board president of the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation and a descendant of Angel Island detainees. So, Felicia, welcome.
Thank you, David. I'm really honored to be moderating this conversation today. I mean, who knew I'd be revisiting this topic some 58 years since I was last a participant. But today we're going to really literally span the ages from the time I was in the pageant in 65 to Cynthia Yee, who will be on with us anytime now. In 1968, Rose, who was in the pageant in 81, and then skip several years to the Yang sisters, Karen and Lauren. I'm very excited for you to see and for us to look at the many changes that have happened, you know, not only in our society, but in our communities and in the pageant, or has it? You know, that's some of the questions we'll explore in the next hour or so. But first, we're going to take a look at the first video that was made of Miss Penny Wong, the first Miss Chinatown, 1948. This was produced by my friend James Chan. This is a 13-minute video, and we'll come back after that to talk a little bit more about that, and again, to hear from the various panelists. Thank you.
I was surprised that I won because there were a lot of pretty girls there. They all had nice figures too. I was surprised. This is the first Miss Chinatown contest, and they really didn't know how to go about buying a crown. This crown is made of cardboard. It wore off after 60, 70 years, so I had to throw it away. Oh, the community was really excited. It's something new. Besides, we had no TV then. I felt that it was special because it was one of the first in Chinatown. I don't think anybody ever wore bathing suits except to go swimming. I'm right here, the blue swimming suit. After I won, I went out every night, partying, and that's how I got fired. Andy, when he came to see the Miss Chinatown contest, that day when I won, he gave a big party for all the contestants. A whole bunch of us went out dinner dancing. This is his Lido nightclub. At that time, he had about 4 or 5 nightclubs. It was fun living in Chinatown. There was no TV, so all they did was go nightclubbing. People were very excited about night clubbing. Even myself, something new. I never got to bed before 5 o'clock. So you can imagine, I cannot get up to go to work in the office.
Welcome to Clarion's Dragon's Den. We're happy to have you here tonight, and we are celebrating Penny's 93rd birthday. So, happy birthday, dear Penny. Happy birthday to you.
I've been living here since 1960, and I think it's about 58 years. I have so many pictures. I change them every now and then, though. This is Jan and my son, Randy. Oh, this is my great-granddaughter. This is how she's a terrific dancer. One of our restaurants at the beach, we sold egg foo young sandwiches on a bun. Everybody liked it. And this is me when we were young. That's me. And this is my sister. She's always been one head shorter, even now, today. She's one head shorter than I am. When I was about 4 or 5, my mother passed away. I don't even remember her. After my mother passed away, they put me in this home, a Chinese Methodist home. It's made into a women's home now.
Hi, Penny. You ready? How are you? Nice to meet you. How are you doing? Yeah, very nice. Please come in. Welcome.
Thank you.
That's the
I live on the highest floor.
the fourth floor.
The fourth floor.
I can walk you to there later on. Do you remember which room you stay at?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, the door is still there.
The dogs.
This Opium used to stay there, and I think we stayed here. Well, these missionaries took care of me. Every day, every breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we had prayer. I had no relatives. So they were my parents. Yeah, I'd like to know when I came in.
Okay.
Okay, later on.
Yeah, later on.
I know they had a record.
Yes,
but-
but not much. But I found one. Your folder.
Oh, you found one?
Yeah, your folder. Yeah, you are coming 1931
Oh, that early.
to 40.
1931? Wow.
To 40.
There's a lot of records.
Yes.
It doesn't show I'm a criminal, right?
Your father named called Lee
Toy
Toy
Lee.
Toy Lee.
Yeah.
And your mother's a Wong Shi,
I never met my mother.
a friend of the Lee family.
Yeah.
He brought Betty and Dory,
Yeah.
Dory to the home of care
Uh-huh.
and training.
Yeah,
Reason
the-
for their
the-
upcoming
yeah.
mother ill and the father were out of town.
Mm-hmm. We were lucky to get in other words.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I got a lot of letters, huh?
That's the letter your father write to the teacher.
Oh,
Your
my father
father-
had a good handwriting.
Yeah, she write to the teacher. You want to read it?
Dear teacher, I didn't know he could write so well. I am Penny's father. I heard of you want me to come over to see you, but I have to work at Oakland every day, and I am very glad of you and thank you to take care of my twin girls, Penny and Dolly. Betty's mother was still sick at home. She will not get well yet. If she getting well, she might be coming to see you and her daughter next week. Hey, I didn't know my father could write. Very interesting. I learned all about myself, things that I never knew about. I want to show you. This is the home, assisted living home I'm interested in. And I've been to about 6 or 7. I looked into that because eventually I'll be old and I want someone to take care of me. And I don't want my daughter to have to put up with me. Maybe I'm spoiled, but I it's when you get old, you really need help. Just like when I lived at Gumwood, it's like same thing. Only when I was at Gumwood, I was a kid, 4.5, 5 years old. But this time, when going into another home, it's senior citizen. You know, when you're a child, you have that scary feeling, but as you get older, you know there's someone's there to take care of you. Then you have a very secure feeling. At least this way, I feel secure. Mm-hmm.
Gonna take a sentimental journey. Gonna set my heart at ease. Gonna make a sentimental journey to renew all memories. 7, that's the time we leave at 7. I'll be waiting up for heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam?
This is my apartment.
Gonna make
This is the kitchen area and the living room area. And I'm sorry, I didn't make my bed today. This is the type of living I've always imagined myself to be in. Because when I was a kid, I lived in a Methodist home, and it was always something like this.
Sunday, 2:20 p.m.
Emily.
It's just me, just checking in to see if everything's okay.
Oh, that's my daughter. When your daughter tells you got to stay somewhere, I figured that she was being kind to put me into a nice home where I'll be protected and I'll be happy. We usually have a lady come in here every day and she makes my bed, but it's too early for her to come, so I'll make it. They have a lot of activities. I want to keep busy, not just, lay in bed all day long. And plus they let us play poker. That's what we like. Once a month is enough.
I want you to find out where you'll be.
The office.
That's right. You didn't. You do know. Okay.
Rosemary's been here a year, and she really likes it here. I haven't seen her for years, like maybe 50 years. She's the only one I met here that I know.
Now you know where to go, just in case you need some kind of medical help. Yeah.
He's a doctor?
No, they call him med tech.
Okay.
And we didn't know we'd ever meet up like this.
Never. I never thought that you would be here.
Never thought you would be here. I don't care. My love waits there. Where? San Francisco.
I had planned on coming to these places long ago, and I like it, so I'll stay. I'm not a young old lady anymore. I'm an old lady.
San Francisco, your golden sun will shine for me.
that was so lovely. And I know Penny too, so just brings warm memories.
How's Penny doing now? Does anyone know?
Yes, the
Have
Grand
you talked
Avenue
to her
Follies
lately?
did a show for her about
great.
2 months ago for Chinese New Year's, and she was great. She just loved it.
Oh, I bet she was. As we noted, in 1948 was the first time, and then it was such a big hit that it was made a national Miss Chinatown pageant in 58. And it has grown and expanded to a national level. And once it was born, that's how we all kind of got involved. So I actually was a junior in college at Christmas break in 1965 when I was invited to compete. And sure, I said, not knowing what I was getting myself into, but it was important to my parents who were immigrants, something I discovered I had in common with all the panelists today. We were American born, and the pageant represented Americanness with a Chinese twist. Let me next introduce you to Cynthia, who knows, well, we already said knows Penny, and she's doing well, but many of you know Cynthia already as an active member of the Chinatown community and the founder of the Grant Avenue Follies. And Cynthia, I want you to back up to 1968 when you were in the pageant. Tell us about why you entered the contest, given the fact that you had already had a couple of years of public performance as a dancer with the Forbidden City nightclub. So what got you into it?
Actually, it was in 1967. And as a little girl or young girl, I always wanted to be in the pageant. I think the first pageant I went to was about in 1960. And I just always wanted to be in the pageant. I just thought it was so glamorous and so nice. And so what happened was that when we were on the road, when I was dancing, we were up in Canada and we had a couple of weeks off. And so I asked my boss if I could fly back to San Francisco to enter the Miss Chinatown pageant. And she said, sure, why not? And so she actually helped me choreograph my number, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. So let me throw it to, we're all going to do a walk around in terms of how you guys got into it. And then we're going to talk about, see another 6-minute video shortly about the 2020 pageant, because we're going to see the big, huge difference between 1948, which was, 75 years ago, but the 2020 and how it has evolved into this rather elaborate, scene. So Rose, we're going to hear a little bit about you as the youngest of 5 daughters.
Mhm.
And I'd like to show Rose's slides because we see some of her family and so forth, but your mother raised you. She was a widow and worked as a seamstress, but you always dreamed of becoming Miss Chinatown. Why was that important to you? And how did that shape your identity?
Really, yeah, it was a childhood dream. I mean, to become Miss Chinatown, it was just, I could have dreamed about being a Hollywood star. I grew up in Chinatown and that was my world. And most of the Chinatown kids went to Chinese school, and, all the parents read the, Chinese Times newspaper. And each year during New Year, they had the poster, and the ladies in the garment factory or everyone would say, who's the winner? So that was like a really far-fetched dream that I had in my little world of Chinatown.
And it really did make a huge imprint on you, because then you followed through with the beauty pageants, and we'll talk about that some more later, but you've been involved with the Miss Asian Global.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to follow up on that a little bit more so you can tell us about that. I'd like to now introduce Karen and her stills. Karen, of course, and Lauren are both sisters. They won, both of them. I mean, I'm sorry to put you guys together, sisters, but in fact, you guys have such an incredible story. You have 2 sisters who have both won Miss Chinatown Houston and Miss Chinatown USA. Your parents must have been, as the Jews would say, cavelling. I don't know what the Chinese term is, but that's pretty fantastic to have both of you guys and that you could learn from one another. I mean, who would say, well, I can just ask my sister what the experience was like. I just wondered how you guys ended up getting involved in the process. Why did your parents want you guys to get into the beauty pageant circuit?
I can start, but Lauren,
Yes,
obviously,
please.
feel free to add
Yeah.
on anything. So I actually competed in pageants before Miss Chinatown, Houston. Lauren and I are both born and raised in Houston, Texas, and in the South in the US, pageants are definitely a lot more popular than other parts of the country. So we had friends competing in teen pageants growing up. And so my mom encouraged me to sign up because I was incredibly shy as a kid. Like even saying hi to the aunties and uncles at a party would make my face turn red. And so I think something needed to change there. And so Laura and I signed up for our first pageant, and it wasn't a Chinese pageant. It was for people of all ethnicities. And it was, I was in late middle school and Lauren was early middle school, I want to say. And for the first couple of times competed, I absolutely really didn't like it. It was just so uncomfortable to have to go on stage and answer questions live and, wear walk in heels. I didn't know how to walk in heels in the time. But over competing a couple of years in those pageants, I just grew to really like how the person I was becoming through pageants and training for them. And so, decided that when I became of age, I would compete in Miss Chinatown, Houston. And Laura and I would go and watch each year as we had friends competing in that pageant as well. And so kind of knew I was going to do it after I graduated from high school.
So that you guys were doing that, I guess I really wondered because your parents came to the States for graduate studies.
Yeah.
So they were quite educated already, but they're still immigrants. And I just wondered if that played a factor in terms of them encouraging you to get into beauty pageant, because, beauty pageants represent something so American in one sense, but the Chinatown thing gives it a twist.
Yeah. I think I actually had to convince my parents to let me compete with the other way around. I think the first time we competed, my mom saw the pamphlet for the pageant and saw the benefits that girls could learn from competing in a pageant, and that was her encouragement. But then after that, I think I was excited by the world of pageantry and just wanted to continue being part of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, how about you, Lauren? What inspired you? Was it you just wanting to, appreciate what your sister had done, or was it your parents nudging you to say, "Oh, you can do this also"? Or what do you think?
Yeah, so like Karen mentioned, we both started in a different pageant system before competing in Miss Chinatown, Houston. And I will say, I think I was pretty adamantly opposed to competing in Miss Chinatown to begin with. I think it was the classic little sister syndrome of not necessarily wanting to do everything that my sister had done.
Sure.
But I think at some point I just realized that it was such an incredible experience for her, and I was able to also see how much she grew from the experience. And so for me to actively choose not to compete, knowing all of the benefits that she had gained from that experience, I felt was a bit irrational. So I did end up competing. It took a bit of convincing, but I think just being able to hear so much about it from my sister was one of the biggest encouragements.
Well, we were able to access the 2020 pageants that she performed in or, competed in. And it was quite an elaborate production value, I have to say, as a video, as a media person. So we've edited a 6-minute clip of that particular pageant, which we're going to show next. So stay tuned and watch this video, and we're going to come back and talk more. Thank you.
The San Francisco Chinese Chamber of Commerce proudly presents Vision, the 2020 Miss Chinatown USA pageant. Contestant number 5, Lauren Yan, 18 years old, from Sugar Land, Texas.
On my cape, I painted my vision for the future, gender equality, where girls globally are educated and positioned to be leaders. Opportunities I am so grateful to have had as a first year at Harvard University and as a 2019 United States Presidential Scholar. I envision a future where women's voices are not only heard, but also believed and respected.
I envision a future with gender equality, a future where girls globally are given educational and health opportunities, have equal pay, have mobility and independence, do not have to constantly fear sexual assault, are heard and are taught that they are more than capable, intelligent, and powerful. A future where women are equal players in shaping public policy, businesses, healthcare, technology, and the arts means a world where sustainable development and innovation are more achievable and more equitable. This is a future I would like to live in. A future where women's rights are treated as human rights.
Tonight, our Miss Community Service Award winner is a young woman that has exemplified leadership and know what it takes and what it means to give back to our community. Her work around women's equality has empowered women and girls in developing countries with tools to help them become the next generation of leaders. She is a champion of arts and works with the homeless population. Everything she does is a real example of her commitment to community service. Congratulations, Lauren Yang.
The 2020 Miss Chinatown USA Pageant, Miss Chinatowns. She is just standing next to both of you. Contestant number 5, Lauren Yang.
Congratulations!
And also, Lauren, you will also get the Thunder Valley Casino Resort Miss Talent 2020 award, but you will get this award next week. Contestant number 5, Lauren Yang.
哇，3料冠軍喎！恭喜恭喜 Lauren Yang！
谱写了你们人生的诗篇，用生命的歌拉近你和我，进入后情一寸各奔前程，心心相连，用生命的歌。
Oh, very nice, very nice. Lauren.
So Lauren, you haven't seen this cut. We didn't get a chance to look at it. What did it feel like to see it all summarized in this little video?
Yeah, it was a little crazy to watch. And thank you so much for putting that together. It was really sweet. It feels like so long ago already. And I haven't watched most of these clips again. So it was really cool to be able to see the experience again through this lens.
I want to thank my friend Wendy Slick for helping me edit that piece. You pretty much like swept the thing. You got 4 ribbons or something like that. And, you know, I know that, you know, equal rights means a lot to you. And we've talked about this before. But one of the things that has really profoundly changed from the Miss Chinatown in the swimsuit, and then even as you saw images of Cynthia and myself, I had a tennis dress. Cynthia had bathing suit, and I think Rose did as well. But you guys, you and your sister had to march out in bikinis. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned this to you before as well, but the time that I went to the competition itself was the first time I had ever worn a bikini. So I had never actually worn one before. And I think going on stage was like maybe the second time ever. So it was a pretty stark realization. And I think honestly that it was the part of the competition that I was most hesitant about and was the reason why I almost didn't compete to begin with. I think because I was struggling to understand the full purpose of having a swimsuit competition as part of a pageant that is about empowering women. Yeah, and I do think that having that segment of the competition does tend to foster unhealthy body image issues, especially among young girls. And I think moving forward, I would be a huge proponent of not including that segment anymore. But I think it is really interesting that the way that Miss Chinatown started was not actually with a swimsuit competition, but actually evolved to fit what other beauty pageants were doing. And I think it's interesting given that other beauty pageants now are eliminating the swimsuit competition. So it'd be interesting to see how Miss Chinatown continues to evolve in that way as well.
Yeah, and I welcome the others to chime in. You know, it's really interesting to note that, you know, the question of representation is such a hot topic now for all of us, you know, to see, you know, how we're represented and how we represent ourselves. And I mean, even in the Miss America pageant, they have eliminated the swimsuit portion. So it'll be interesting to see if the elders who are making decisions about the contest really understand or will consider that. Because, you know, one of the criticisms you hear about the beauty pageant is that it can, for all the good that it does in terms of representation, it also can feed into some of the stereotypes of China doll or the model minority. But tell me about, for you and for the others, I'd like to know in what ways the experience was such embedded in you a positive image. You were, despite your discomfort, very poised throughout. You know, I looked at you many times walking across that stage and editing. So you faked it well if that's what you were doing. You looked very comfortable in that role. But like Cynthia, what do you think, you know, having seen this like new, huge, flashy production, maybe you've been to some of the more recent ones and seen that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I would be able to do that.
Yeah, they can wear bikinis. I would have been horrified. I couldn't have done it.
Well, as a pageant producer,
Yeah.
the question has come up, I would say, during the last decade, and I leave it to the the new generation of leaders who I'm passing on the pageant to let them decide whether they would like to keep it or not. And I've asked previous title holders, and many of them really are very proud of their body, that they worked really hard to get so fit. So they want to keep it. And yeah, so, well, who knows, for this year, we have the discussion every year, should we keep it? And it has been, let's keep it.
Maybe the heart of the conversation should be, what is the importance of the beauty pageants? You know, why do they exist? And are they relevant today? More relevant, less, you know, in light of even what's going on, like with the anti-Asian hate stuff, you know, what's the role of a beauty pageant in all of this?
You know, when I joined the pageant, when I was young, there wasn't any other platforms to express yourself and present yourself in my community that time in Chinatown. And now in this generation, there's so many opportunities on, on social media. Everyone has had public speaking and such. When I ran the pageant, in the Miss Chinatown pageant during my era, that was the only opportunity to come out and take risks and do something like that. I had no public speaking experience, no dance experience, and many of us didn't have it. So, that was a really life-changing pageant for me. I think for now, it's just one of the many platforms to participate in, to express who you are. There's many other type of competitions that you can participate in, but this one, I think it's now just a blip in these young women's, in this young women's generation. We have girls now who are like 21 years old, successful entrepreneurs, making millions of dollars. They still want to join our pageant, and it's entertaining. It's just like a tradition that brings the community together. So for me, that's how it's changed.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, one of the things oftentimes, I might get a phone call or a request to be interviewed about my experience. And sometimes they would ask the question like, well, how did you feel about it in light of the women's movement and feminists? And I said, in 1965, they didn't even talk about that. It wasn't on the radar. But Karen, now you actually, you are one of these successful young women. You graduated from Harvard. What are you doing now? And how did that, experience affect you? I mean, how did you feel about the swimsuit bikini thing?
Yeah.
And you guys look terrific in it. I saw your bikini one too.
Thank you. Yeah. So when I was competing in the pageant, I honestly didn't think too much of it. I was like, this is part of the competition. I'm just going to follow the rules. I'm not going to think too much about if I believe it should be part of the pageant. But I actually think through the process of competing in pageants, and I actually competed in the Miss America system too after doing Miss Chinatown USA. And for that pageant, you have to do a personal interview that's one-on-one with the judges, and you're kind of answering questions about current events and your opinion on things. And so I think I learned to formulate, to really think about my opinion about certain topics. But I think when I was competing, I kind of just followed it, whatever the rules were, and just went by the rules. And so looking back now, I think the positives of the swimsuit portion are that it was the first time I learned how to like lift weights and prioritize working out and like being healthy. And I think it's something that unfortunately, like the US school system just doesn't teach you very well in school. And like you either get influenced by your parents or some other way to learn how to live a healthy lifestyle. And I think that was definitely a positive, and I've carried that into my adult life as well. I think negative, it definitely before the pageant, because you're going to be on stage in a bikini, you are very cautious of what you're eating, like things like that, which can cause some like mental health issues. And I don't know, I think having that experience from a young age, but not being able to really identify why you're feeling that way or what it was, looking back, I think was a little harmful in some ways. And when I competed in Miss America, the Miss America system for Miss Massachusetts, that was actually the last year they had the swimsuit competition. And I remember all the girls were kind of discussing and really trying to like think about whether or not they supported this swimsuit portion or not. And I think for a lot of the girls, for them, it actually help them feel really confident in their own body, like whatever size, shape, to be able to, you know, work on yourself and be the best version of yourself, and to like present that on stage, I think is what you can gain from the swimsuit competition.
Well, I don't want to, I mean, that's only one topic, and, you know, a critique or criticism that has been brought up about the relevance of the Miss Chinatown pageant, because there are plenty of pluses about why it exists. And the question is, in this day and age, is it as important as it was at the beginning? Because now, you know, we are affected by the influx of new set of immigrants post 65. And they are planting their feet on the ground in another way. And I think that the Miss Chinatown pageant seems to be one of the ways in which they are saying, we're here, we belong here, and we're Chinese. You think that's correct? Or because I think that's how my parents felt about it. And so even though they might be more educated and have come later, it is an American thing, it seems like. Beauty pageants. Am I the only one?
I think you're right, Felicia. And I think it's very, very important. And I think it really helps with people's, a lot of people are shy. And I think this is really helps with their self-esteem. And and I think entering a pageant is very good. You meet all your friends, you go to the family association. There's so many pluses, and I think it's great. I don't want to see it go away.
I don't think that'll ever happen. I mean, one of the reasons why it was developed even was to attract more tourists to Chinatown, and to the whole concept of the New Year's parade, and you know, all the festivities around it. And God knows the revitalization now is so important, especially after the COVID period, if we can say it's after the COVID. But how about you, Rose? Now, because you've worked with so many gals over the years now. Well, and have you seen a change in attitudes, or how has it evolved from your point of view?
Well, now for the pageants, now we're more focused on improving communication skills for I call them delegates now, to improve their communication skills, and they walk away with it and they go speak in TED Talks. I mean, myself too, I developed a program with a couple of co-founders to have an Imagine Talks, which is an Asian version of TED Talks, to provide that platform to improve their skills, to give them that opportunity and these skills that it really helps them. Many of them are going to be, like I said, become CEOs or leaders in our community, to become activists, and we provide these skills. So that I think it has a place there. And
so, why did you actually, maybe you could tell the story of how you ended up helping develop the Miss Global Chinatown?
Well, I could tell you from my experience of, you know, running for Miss Chinatown, really lacking experience. And when I won, it really was a shock. And I didn't know why I won, but I knew that I really wanted to serve the community. It opened up a world of people inviting me to places and volunteering, getting me involved with my family association, and helping out with a student organization called Bay Area Chinese Student Alumni Association. And they had this other pageant, which was called the Rose Ball Pageant. I ran in that pageant to prepare me for the Miss Chinatown pageant. There was a band that we hired, and he asked me to start a Miss Asian California pageant in San Jose for their TED Festival. So actually, when I was young, I could do, you know, so many things. So I started from there, and I also helped to produce the, you know, Asian Arts Festival, which was an imitation of the TED Festival in San Jose. So that festival, you know, was just for 1 year, but I kept the pageant, and it has just evolved, and we are now on our 38th year. And right now I'm still involved in the Chinese community. Being Miss Chinatown has absolutely transformed my life. And I still love Chinatown, just like Cynthia. And if you could say what the original intent for what Miss Chinatown was, I think I embody that now, because I really want to give it back. I want to be ambassador of Chinatown. Everyone I talk to are tourists, and I just want to tell them about the Bruce Lee Museum every Saturday now. You know, we have line dancing with Line Dance Me, more activities in Chinatown that they want to come to San Francisco, Chinatown. You know, along with Cynthia, I mean, when I was young, looking at the program book, I saw Cynthia from the program book. I saw my first pageant when I was 16 years old, saying like, I can't do that. But when I became 22 years old, I said, I think I can do it. I survived and my dream came true. And I've lived a long journey here. And, you know, yeah. But this is the great side of the love of, you know, my love of Chinatown. And it's been an experience.
Yeah, well, all of you have said that it improved your self-confidence in every way. I mean, even the Yang sisters, if I can call you guys that, you know, have said that, in fact, it really had brought out, you know, the confidence in you by doing these, participating in the pageants. You've learned more about your own capabilities. And of course, we do know that it's obstacles that you overcome that help you learn a little bit more about your own capabilities. So, you know, that's really exciting. So I do want to kind of think about what now, particularly, well, I know maybe you, Cynthia, since you're on cam now, talk about what you've been doing, because I think all of us locally know about Grant Avenue Follies, but talk about what you have been doing. Tell us about Grant Avenue Follies and what you guys do.
Well, the Grant Avenue Follies started with 4 ladies that were working the nightclubs in the 1950s and 1960s. And we started to take senior tap classes. And at the tap class, we said we wanted to give back to Chinatown, but we really didn't know how. And so I was president of the Chinese Hospital Auxiliary, the Friends of Unlock, and the Optimist Club. And so they asked me to put on a show for one of their fundraisers. And so they said, give us something different. So I said, well, let's go back to the days of the nightclubs. Let's get all the ladies put on fishnet stockings, feather head pieces, and a lot of bling. And it worked. And after our first show, we had a standing ovation, which is unheard of with Chinese audiences. And after that, we were asked by other organizations to help them out. And then so what happened was that we started to go to all the nursing homes and veteran hospitals. And yearly, I produced the Veterans Hospital show called God Bless the USA, which we will do again, maybe end of this year. And it's already our 20th year anniversary. So we're pretty delighted with that. Here you see a picture of the Grant Avenue Follies with Mario Lopez. What happened was 2 years ago, we actually performed a rap during Asian Hate. And so we said, we just can't go to a rally and put up a board and said, don't hit us grandmas. And so I talked Clara, who is a poet, and she wrote a rap about the gai mo so. And the gai mo so is the chicken feather duster. And so it went viral. And we're already on our 3rd rap. So it's something that is different for us seniors and us grandmas. And so we're pretty happy about that. And it's very different. So no more of those traditional fan dances and whatnot. We're into feathers and bling. And the gai mo so.
Yeah. What's the minimum age to be part of Grant Avenue Follies?
You have to be 65. Our oldest is Pat Chin. She's 87 years old. I believe she's on board right now. And most of the gals are in their 70s.
Well, that's great. But you guys have done some international travel of late as well.
Yes, we just came back from Sydney, Australia. We performed for the Hong Kong Business Association. And we raised some money for the local hospital in Sydney. And we went to Cuba, we went to Beijing, we went to Shanghai, everywhere. Houston, Texas is actually our favorite city. We love Houston, Texas. And go
How are
to this
you, too?
wonderful store called Sam Moon, and we buy all our bling there. And we come back with bags and bags of bling. And so we love the food, the hospitality of Houston, Texas. So we love Texas.
That's amazing. Now, you guys, now Sugarland, is that close to Houston?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a suburb.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you guys were growing up in Texas, in Sugarland, was there a sizable Asian population there? I'm just curious.
There definitely was. Our Chinatown is very different than SF Chinatown. It's definitely much newer. I think it's a lot more spread out. And I think for me, when I was competing in the pageant and being able to see the rich history of SF Chinatown, it made me just feel so much. I think it made me realize that this being Chinese in America can look very different for many different people. And I think for Laura and I growing up, like our version of Chinatown was the Houston Chinatown that was much newer, much more modern. And so we would go on the weekends to attend like Chinese class and dance classes there. And so there was definitely a good community there. But the neighborhoods that we grew up in were very diverse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that it's so great that the Grant Avenue Follies are breaking stereotypes, which is great. And I think, of course, as you guys move out into the world, we all have this opportunity to change some images. Some you can't are imposed on you, but the ways in which you live your life are the ways in which you can inform people and broaden their understanding. So tell me about what you're doing now, Karen. What's your work now that you're doing? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I work as a management consultant in New York City. I've been working here for about 2.5 years now. And as a result of the pageant, actually, I think it made me want to stay close to Asian American issues, like no matter where I go. And I'm very involved in my company's Asian Diversity Network. And we host a lot of events around the Chinese New Year and other celebrations, but then also think about the struggles that Asian professionals face in the workplace and like the discrimination and stereotypes that we have to overcome. And so I think a lot of the things that I've learned through pageantry have definitely carried me far in this job. A lot of it's learning how to like present in front of clients, as well as kind of engaging a broad audience. And through the skills I've learned in pageants, I think people have said like, okay, you project very well. And I attribute a lot of that to just the coaching I received in pageantry.
You're not tempted to say, are you surprised because I'm Chinese?
Honestly, a little bit. Yeah, I think, I mean, the Chinese stereotype is definitely to be less outspoken, kind of good at the math and data analysis and not the leader. And so, yeah, hoping to be a small part of breaking that stereotype.
And you are. So Lauren, you have, you're in your senior year. Yes. What are your plans after school? Yeah, and you lead a pretty active life already on campus, right?
Yeah, a bit. Not so much this year, but definitely the past few years. Not to follow my sister's footsteps again.
Of course, independently. What are you doing?
I am also going into management consulting after graduation, but the end goal is hopefully to go to law school and do something related to civil rights law. I think a lot of my experience with Miss Chinatown USA showed me that there are a lot of organizations that are working actively to prevent continued discrimination against Asian Americans. So I think it'd be really amazing to continue to try and contribute to those organizations, whether it's through a legal lens or a policy lens in the future.
So what was it like for you, unless you had already accompanied Karen to San Francisco? Was that experience different for you as well? You know, like there are Chinese and lots of them around here.
Yeah. It was actually my first time in San Francisco. I hadn't known what family associations were because they're not as prominent as they are in Houston, where a lot of the Chinese Americans in Houston are their first wave immigrants or they were born here. Whereas learning about the rich history of San Francisco and Angel Island was really interesting. I didn't know anything about paper boys before. So being able to meet people whose grandparents
Paper sons.
was very different from, like Karen was saying, my understanding of what it means to be Chinese in America.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, Rose, you've been now, I think, starting to free yourself and embark on some international travel and bringing your enthusiasm and representation of.
Well, yeah, you know what? I've done the Miss Asian Global Pageant for 38 years. My life actually revolved around it. It's like putting together a wedding. So now I'm passing along. Now I have scheduled to travel internationally, and when I'm at home down in Chinatown, seeing what's happening so I can share it. But I see we have over 300 visitors watching this website, and I'm easily found on Facebook. And if you want to reach out to me and you're coming to San Francisco, I'll take you on a 1-hour tour of Chinatown and treat you to some dim sum, but you got to come connect with me. And I just want to that's me being an ambassador because I love Chinatown. And if Cynthia's around, I'll invite her too.
Thank you.
I'm looking at some of these Q&As that have come across, and one says, Rose, do you have a sister named Margie?
Okay. Watching the program.
Okay. All right. Well, that's that question. That answers that question.
Is the public able to access these Q&As, or is it just us?
No, I think anybody can. Let's see. Just hit Q&A and you'll see them.
I see everyone's, but I didn't know if everyone.
I frankly, I'm not that hip on this stuff. Maybe you guys know. The Yang sisters can answer that question. Can anybody access the Q&A on this?
The sun is beating in my office. Yes, I think everyone can see the Q&As.
Okay.
There's a couple of people that are saying hello, and I think we should probably. One is Gregory Chan. Penny Wong is my aunt, my mother's twin sister, so I've seen her life up close. And then our friend here in DC, Penny Lee, says, my maiden name was Lau. I was one of the contestants in the 1981 Chinatown USA pageant in San Francisco when you won that year. I represented Washington, DC, Chinatown. Nice to see you again.
Yeah. Hi, Penny. Connect with me again.
I got one that said, this Raymond Faye's mother made my drunk psalm when I was in the pageant. Thank you.
Wait,
I wish I could fit it.
You know what? I think Raymond Faye's mother is Tom Shea's. I think that's Tom Shea's mother-in-law.
She had a shop called Lily's downstairs at the Empress of China, and she actually did our fashion shows.
Yeah. Tom Shea, the former
Chinese dress, the Chinese dresses in both of your years, Karen and Lauren, were magnificent. I mean, the lengths at which people have gone. Where did you get your Chinese dresses made?
I got mine made by a local tailor in Houston, Chinatown. So that's kind of a emerging business, I would say, in Houston, Chinatown for making these beautiful cheapos.
I got mine from a friend who had gotten it handmade in Hong Kong, I believe. And I think every sequin was hand sewn, which is just beautiful.
Somebody said, how do you win Miss Chinatown? Well, if you
hard work.
It doesn't come so easily, especially if you take a look at some of the programs, because you can on YouTube see some of the programs. And in the old days, I think when I was running, they would say, well, it was very political, like you had to have connections, you had to have people who were a family member who was involved with the family associations. I don't know if so I don't know if all of that has changed. I haven't been in part of that conversation, but I like you guys, the Yang sisters, sorry to refer to you like that, but it's easier than the two names. That, it was just the opposite. Coming from the Bay Area, it was the first time for me to meet Chinese gals from all over the country who had very different kinds of experiences than we had. Somebody with a Southern accent, somebody from Philly, and they were, like you, very interested. And so the engagement between all the women, young women, was really exciting, because we really were learning from each other. And even as a local person, because my parents were not political and not involved in the gongsa, the organizations, I was able to get an inside view of how the inner workings of Chinatown. And I would say for myself, the influence was, not apparent. But when I fast forward to the work that I have done, which is to make media, it's really much involved in trying to understand our place in America. Who were the Chinese? How did we get here? Why are we always considered second-class citizens? What is the anti-Asian hate about? And how is that connected to the Chinese Exclusion Act, for example? So, these are, the past does live in the present. And I think certainly the Miss Chinatown pageant and those aspects of it that really want to say, we belong here. It's a way of trying to underscore that point. And, I think it's a fair question to say, do we have to have ambassadors? Do the Japanese have an ambassador? Do the French have an ambassador? That's a heavy load to carry.
To some extent, it's an effort to be seen. It's an effort to be recognized and seen amongst the rest of American society. So I think that there's been that role. Just from the comments, I get the sense that there is a community out there related to this pageant. Have you all run into or found that you could count on your connections through this community that's formed around this pageant over the years?
I have not been a part of it. I'm sure Rose is probably much more engaged in that. I do have to say that I've been in touch with a few people over the years that I was in that pageant with. One is Miss Talent, Kathy Fong, who now lives in the North Bay. And it's just so happened that we were both kind of traveling in similar circles. So that's how it intersected. But, I get a chuckle out of bumping into people because, we all had black hair then, we were different people. And so now we're living very different lives. And it's been interesting to see the trajectory of our lives. For me, one of the things that I gain a lot of pleasure in sharing is that when I was in the pageant, I sang a song with a 40-piece orchestra. Now, at the Masonic Auditorium. But what I can say more recently is that I've also been a guest speaker to welcome people in a citizenship swearing-in ceremony at the Masonic Auditorium. So those are two kind of bookend experiences that I'm really it makes for a good story. What can I say?
One thing, could you clarify? So there's the Miss Chinatown USA pageant, and that's always held in San Francisco.
It has been.
Are there also Miss Chinatowns in other cities that are they actually tied to the San Francisco pageant, or are they all separate?
They're individual. They're separate. Mm-hmm. And of course, many of the local ones are the Miss Chinatowns of the various independent cities are often the candidates they send to the Miss Chinatown USA. Does anybody want to add to that? It was true for you guys, right?
Yeah.
I think each year now they'll have a representative from the Hawaii Chinatown pageant, the one from Houston. They used to have in Arizona, and they actually used to have in LA, and then I guess they come and go. Now Chicago just came out with a regular representative. So sometimes the other pageants no longer exist, or sometimes I have to say, if their winner didn't win and they didn't want to send anymore, Seattle still sends a contestant. So they win another pageant before they come to join the Miss Chinatown USA. And usually there's about 5 to 6 Bay Area contestants who qualify for the Miss San Francisco Chinatown title.
So we had one image that we didn't show during our program so far. Let me just pull it up. And I think this is the image of Miss Asian Global.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So this is the pageant that I produce, and we have participants representing different Asian ethnicities, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Laotian, Thai. So, and and how I learned how to do it is because of my experience from the Miss Chinatown pageant. And now it has evolved. We definitely do focus on leadership, entrepreneurship, technology, and just seeing what we can offer to the women for their future career.
Yeah.
I'm reading from Julie Sue. Hi, Julie. I'm trying to condense what you're saying, but she notes Julie is an attorney and works as on the civil rights and human rights, and is a former commissioner on the San Francisco Commission on the Status of Women. And she says, I believe in being present to change hearts and minds. I would like to know Karen and Lauren's thoughts with their work in the new generation as compared to the old school, us. Have we said anything that profoundly, we feel like is diametrically opposed to how you think or anything like that?
No, I don't. No, not from my end. I don't think anything's like a drastic difference. Yeah.
Well, I think that all of us, and I think I can say this honestly, I think we're all very open-minded people, and we can engage in conversations, whether we agree or not agree, but I don't even sense any disagreement. I think we all can see the positives as well as, the justified, critiques of it, because from other point of view, this thing about the bikini and body image and all of that is a big topic, no matter where you are now. And that it's interesting to me that, say, in contests like Miss Cherry Blossom Festival, they here in San Francisco, the women wear kimonos. That's it, done. Miss America, now they've cut that out. But some of the contests still have them. And I think that, it's just a discussion now because we're in a different level of awareness also. So it just depends on, as Rose says, it's reflective in terms of how the contestants feel and if they have a voice in that decision, or if those who make the decision have a good justification for what they say. Because if you're saying you're going to get a big grant, and this is really to emphasize your intellectual capacity, your educational opportunity, then, one has nothing to do with the other. So I think that these are, ripe for conversation, and just to be current, why not, right? Are all Miss Chinatown contestants bilingual is one of the questions.
No.
So one thing for
in my year, we had questions in Chinese as well as English, but they don't have that anymore. So.
Yeah. But you girls are bilingual, right? And girls, you two know who I mean.
So we actually speak Mandarin, and so that was also a shock for us. We went to San Francisco and realized that actually
they're Cantonese.
Cantonese speaking. In the pageant, when they did Q&A, they would say the question in Cantonese first and then English. And so, so I think for Lauren and I, like most of the Houston Chinese population is Mandarin speaking. So we thought that obviously in every Chinatown, it's probably mostly Mandarin speaking, which is definitely not the case. And a good learning point for us.
Yeah, I think still to this day, to run the program, there's 3 different MCs, one who speaks Cantonese, one who speaks Mandarin, and one who speaks English. So definitely
makes it a long program.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good. Somebody asked the question of, it wasn't CACA that created the first pageant. It was not CACA, it was
The
I
Lee
know.
family. I think when Penny
Yeah.
entered, it was the Lee Family Association.
Yeah, right. But the question was in response, created the first pageant, was it in response to the increasing anti-Chinese sentiment in the US as the communists were taking over China? Well, there was some, I think that there was some political influence because I was reading in my research that there was xenophobia in the 50s and 60s when the communists took over. There was more of a desire to say, we're American Chinese and we're not them, we're this. And now with the anti-Chinese response lately, there is again the need to say, we belong here. We don't want to be invisible. We belong here. And I think that it's just sad that we have to elbow our way through, even though we've been here for, centuries, actually. So, that's what it is. Let's see, kind of tried to make connections.
One person mentioned, and as someone at a museum, it did break my heart to hear Penny in the documentary say this, but she says, Penny received a cardboard tiara, and then she mentioned that she had to throw it away. It would be nice to present her with a real tiara, especially since she was the first Miss Chinatown. So it sounds like a GoFundMe.
GoFundMe, heck, you guys could just do it on your own. Make it happen. Make it happen. There's a question for Karen and Lauren. Was there ever a period in your life when you felt less confident about the way you looked? How did Miss Chinatown change or impact that? I think you've sort of answered that question, but please respond more.
I think for me, actually, when I was competing in pageants before Miss Chinatown, I was very insecure about being Chinese. Like most of the times there would be maybe one other Asian contestant out of a group of 100 girls. And so just my parents being immigrants and our family just, having different traditions, I think I just felt like I really didn't fit in, and started to think about like, how do I make my makeup look more Western, or how do I kind of fit in better in those ways? And I think over time, with the rise of like YouTubers who are Asian and teaching like makeup tutorials and for Asian eyes and Asian features, and also just generally the conversation shifting towards more like acceptance and using your like differences and the diversity as an advantage. I think it began to shift for me there. And I remember I was just very unapologetically, kind of talk about my Chinese heritage, talk about the food I like to eat, going back to China to see my grandparents, and just being very open with the other girls who we're mostly white, to be frank.
Yeah.
Well, I think even though the pageant itself is sort of a Western concept, I think what makes the Miss Chinatown pageant incredible from its beginnings to even today is just that it's not trying to mask or hide that the contestants are Asian, and it's not trying to squelch the culture. It's trying to celebrate it. So I mean, I think that there might be some controversy with some people just in terms of how pageants come together, and whether there's the swimsuit competition, but ultimately I think that they've always tried to celebrate Chinese heritage. And I think that's the one continuity throughout its history.
I don't know if anybody knows this answer, but the question is, do you have to be at least 50% Chinese? I saw a blonde contestant in Lauren's pageant. In the 60s and 70s, there were contestants who were half Chinese. Does anybody know that answer?
I think you can be half Chinese. I think the one caveat to that, from what I remember from the application form, is that your dad has to be of Chinese descent.
Your father.
A little patriarchal.
All right, so I think I qualify. So.
But do you have a daughter? Is the question.
I do not have a daughter. I have two sons.
All right. So if you did, she would qualify.
Well, I think it was actually several in the 60s. Wasn't there someone whose father was Linda Price? Was her father Caucasian, Cynthia? And then And then I think it maybe went down, and I don't know if it was Rose Pack who said, the father had to be Chinese.
Oh, really?
In the 60s, right? Yeah, there
Right.
was.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that, but yes, her father is Caucasian.
Yeah.
Her
So
mother
you know
was,
what?
Chinese.
When I was a kid, I looked at the Miss Chinatown poster. I could memorize all the queens. I can't do that now. But even the contestants, and then and then down the line, I would meet someone and they would say their name, and I could tell them what year they participated in the pageant. I don't remember that anymore. But I was just like, people are sports fans and stuff. I mean, I was a Miss Chinatown fan.
Through and through. We're slowly winding down. I'm just going over questions, see if we tried to cover as many as possible. David, are you catching any that we should
Well, someone
cover?
suggested that there's future pageants include a 1,500-meter run. Wow.
We kind of like have that for like the men pageants. There was a Mr. Asian pageant.
Was there? Tell us more about that.
And they had, Did
it last very long? I didn't hardly heard of
it. Lasted 10 years. They were really great. Yeah, the girls be yelling and cheering on these muscle men, but they didn't sell as many tickets and they didn't raise as much money, so then it went defunct. But the Bay Area Chinese Student Alumni Association did have a Mr. Asian here locally, and it was held at the Palace of Fine Arts, and it was a really fine production.
Interesting.
Now, where does the money go to, actually? Interesting topic you brought up. What happens? Where does the scholarship money come from, and where does all the money to promote the thing go? Do you know? Anybody?
Well, my thought is this Chinese Chamber of Commerce is composed of different businesses and businessmen, and they manage to raise funds because they have all the connections. My pageant is just such a passion project that for me, it was a hit or miss. If I didn't raise, if not enough money was raised, I put out the money, and it was my baby. I didn't tell people because no one believed that I would pay to do the pageant. But I think I could say that now. I'm out of it. I got a new generation of young women running the pageant, and I believe that they can raise the money and be a better business person than I am. Because I started the pageant like when I was like 25 years old, right? So that's how it was. And then, in the last few years now, just being better in business, it would cover it.
Yeah.
And even for the Mr. Asian and the Rose Ball pageant, it got to be difficult. And I saw from that example, like if you don't keep on having new volunteers, it's gonna fizzle out. So I said I gotta keep on bringing new people, and that's how we lasted. I don't know.
Well, I think volunteers make it happen too, right? They're a large part of what's going on.
Oh, well, for my pageant, it's entirely run by volunteers, 100%.
Yeah. No, Julie was mentioning that her brothers were escorts in the pageant because they always needed guys to escort.
Julie's brother ran in a Mr. Asian pageant. His brother, and I think he played the trumpet. Brian, right? Yeah.
There's a question here. Has there been a museum exhibit retrospective of the Miss Chinatown pageant? I do know that the Chinese Historical Society of America a few years back did an exhibit. It was small because I loaned my dress and my badge and my thing, but I don't know beyond that if there's been one.
I don't think so. That was to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
Right. We can thank Ben Shu for suggesting this program because he was the one who first approached me to write about my experience. And I said, why? who wants to know? Anyway, I said, for me, I'm much more interested in finding out what happened and how did that influence the direction you went. So we're looking closely and anxiously to see the kinds of stuff that you two do, which I'm sure is going to be tremendous. Because you guys are such great leaders already.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to know what Lauren and Karen are doing now.
They spoke a little bit about that. They're both well, you speak for yourself, gals.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Lauren?
No, you can go.
So I'm a management consultant in New York, and I've been living here for 2.5 years now. Very involved in the Asian Diversity Network at my company. We run a lot of programming for Asian American professionals and combating some of the stereotypes that we face in the workplace. And then, yeah, I'm still dancing. I still very active, kind of learning more about like my passions and my hobbies here. And I've been honestly super inspired by the three of you and hearing your stories and the ways you've reflected on different experiences in your life. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. How about you, Lauren?
Yeah, I probably have my life figured out the least compared to everyone
Well,
else.
that's only fair. You are only in your 20s, for God's sake.
So my life is planned out for the next 2 years, perhaps, and then from there, I'm not quite sure. Also doing management consulting, but in Washington, D.C., which I believe the museum is also in. So maybe I'll see you sometime, David.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then hopefully going to law school afterwards. And then from there, we'll see.
You could do all that in DC.
Yeah, I could just stay there.
David, I understand that you'll be working with the 1880 Foundation to do a program on women
Yeah,
in
we're
the fall. I
yeah,
hope you guys will
absolutely.
bring me back to show one of my films.
Oh, terrific, terrific. Yeah, this will be our second Chinese American Women in History conference. And it's one of the many programs that we do with the 1882 Foundation, which does a lot of great work here in DC and abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've run out of time. So I just wanted to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you to Felicia, Cynthia, Rose, Karen, and Lauren. And this program has been recorded. So it will be on our the Chinese American Museum YouTube channel in about a week. Magically, it will edit out all the technical difficulties that you saw.
Great.
That's always the beauty of our recordings. But we appreciate everyone who took the time to join our program this evening. Please consider supporting the Chinese American Museum or any Chinese American museum or cultural organization in your town. It's telling these kinds of stories that really help move our Chinese American story forward. So we're continuing to develop a museum here in DC. We are open for visitors for free admission, and you can learn more about us at the ChineseAmericanMuseum.org, at ChineseAmericanMuseum.org. So this event was hosted by our museum, but was brought to you in collaboration with the Chinese North American History Network. And that the participating museums for this program include the Museum of Chinese in America, the Wing Luke Museum, the Chinese American Museum of Chicago, San Diego Chinese Historical Museum, the Chinese American Heritage Foundation, the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, I'm almost finished, the Chinese Historical Society of America, which we just mentioned earlier, and the Chinese American Museum, Los Angeles. So like we mentioned, there are a lot of great organizations out there, and find ways to get involved and support these organizations. So, well, thank you so much for everyone joining us. I don't know if anyone had any last words.
They're fading fast.
Thank you all very much, and come visit Chinatown. I'm serious. Find me on Facebook, and I'll treat you to dim sum.
Yeah, come to the Showgirl Magic Museum, and I do have a lot of the yearbooks of the Miss Chinatowns.
Cynthia, do you have a website?
We have a Showgirl Magic Museum in San Francisco, Chinatown.
Do you have a website?
Display.
Cynthia, do you have a website for the Showgirl Museum?
It's under clarionSF.org.
Okay.
clarionSF.org.
Well, we always send a follow-up email to all the registrants of the webinar, so we'll get that. We'll put that website in there.
Also, maybe we can put down the links to some of the videos that we showed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you
Well,
so
we'll
much.
pull it off,
David.
ladies.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you so
So
much.
soon.
Amazing.
Dim
Bye.
sum time. Time to eat.
I'm coming right over. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.